What you got there?
Palo Santo. Clears the space, keeps us safe. Palo Santo helps creativity. So I figured we would bless the van with our Palo Santo.
Bless the vessel.
Bless the vessel. It's worth a shot. What's the alternative? Nothing?
Right.
We'll give it a shot. We're gonna drive to my old house where I lived when I was in the motorcycle accident. We are going to drive the route that I took the day of my accident, heading downtown to the liquor store, and I guess just kind of relive the day, relive the route, see what it feels like. I've driven by once before, but I've never really been back. But yeah, we'll drive there and we'll step out and have a little chat about it. This is the street that I lived on when it happened. My house is at the top of the hill. So this used to be it was this house right here where this Jeep is. I lived right up there. And my motorcycle was in that little garage right there. And the day of the accident, I drove down the hill. I was waiting for this jacket that I ordered to be delivered, and I saw the mail truck right here. And I asked the mailman if he had a package for my address, and he did. And he gave me my box, gave me my jacket in the box, and I put it on my gas tank and rode back up the hill and just dropped the box on the other side of the fence. For whatever reason. That's where the mailman would have put it anyway, but for whatever reason, I had to grab it. And Cass waited for me at the bottom of the hill, and so I flipped around and I came back down, and then we were off. As I've replayed the story over and over in my head, where it was that split second that the car and I met, which it was 1 second earlier, nothing would have happened. 1 second later, nothing would have happened. But it had to be perfectly timed, and waiting for the jacket and bringing the jacket back up the hill was just another one of those things. Like, if I didn't get the jacket, would it have ever happened? Pardon the mess. This has ended up being storage for everything from some event stuff to my old motorcycle and everything. Yep. She's been sitting there since the accident happened, so it's been there for 2 years. I gotta sell it. But yeah, I do remember the ride. I remember it was a beautiful morning. It was just like this, and it was right around this time that it happened. And the ride felt good, and Cass was riding right behind me.
What kind of bike were you driving?
It's like market name. It's the Harley Davidson Street Bob. It's a pretty big bike. You know, we're getting closer. I'm getting like butterflies in my stomach. It's like, you know, doing this with intention, probably with most things, doing it with intention really it's really bringing me back. Cass and I were just cruising along. We didn't talk about what route we were going to take. And I guess we took different routes. And as we were approaching this light up here, Cass actually wanted to turn right at this light. And right about here, she was gonna go, signaled that she was gonna go right, and I was like, nah, let's go ahead. Let's go straight through the light. And then there's no cars in the turn lane right here, but in this turn lane there was a line of cars, and I passed through the light, and then right about here, boom, my life changed completely. Didn't make it this far. Yeah, it was pretty crazy feeling right there.
Yeah. How'd you feel?
I don't know. I just felt like I was doing it again. Like I was in it. I was in my head doing it. I actually thought about it like a couple weeks prior. I wanted to get one of those 3/4 helmets that show your face, and I only wanted to get it because they look cool. And I just didn't. I didn't get it. I didn't pull the trigger on it, and I wanted to get the 3/4 helmet for my like riding around town helmet, which this would have qualified as riding around town. And I remember hitting my face on the left side. I hit right where the chin protector is, and I don't know if I thought about it right then, but I thought about when I was in the hospital. Like, man, if you had that 3/4 on, that could have killed you. You could have broken your jaw, all your teeth, whatever. You know, that's like one identifiable element that 100% made it better than it could have been. You know, you could say, what if I left earlier? What if I didn't get the jacket? What if I this? What if I that? But the fact that I had a full face helmet on, there's no real what if about it. It's like that potentially saved my life. So I'm glad that I didn't act on trying to look cool, and that I knew that the real cool look was to be alive.
Yeah.
To be safe. But yeah. Yeah, I think I got nervous peas. It's really cool to have a van that you could just stand up in, tinted windows. When you have a van, you can pee in a can. Exactly right. My toilet should be somewhere right about here. So I was pretty close. Expires 12/49. Cool. Yeah, the cop had just come out of, I guess he must have been in the parking lot. He had just come out of CVS, and he came over and immediately just kind of like, you know, held me still, and you know, he's like, you can't move your, I was like, I want to take my helmet off, and he's like, you know, you can't do that. It's like, yeah, I know, but I want to. It was kind of funny. I was super calm, and then I was like, I want to lay on my back. I'm so hot. And he was like, I know, you can't do that. And I was like, I know.
What position were you in then?
I was on my right arm, which was the right arm was my shattered humerus. This is the intersection where I made a pivotal decision that ultimately changed the course of my life. As dramatic as that sounds, it's completely true. Apparently, when we had ridden downtown, we took two different ways. So Cass would go down Beaudry, I would take Sunset. And then shortly after was where the accident ended up happening. I was going 35 miles an hour, just going the speed limit. And so this little walk that we're doing is an eternity compared to how quickly we traveled it when we were on the bikes. I had no idea what was coming. Yeah, so I was in the left lane coming through that light, and you could see that there's a little bit of a curve. And so there was a whole queue of cars waiting to go left here, and it was backed up. The queue was backed up to right about here, Right, it was right in front of this driveway, because the person that hit me was turning into the CVS, and my instinct is that she was trying to turn into the CVS, cut through the parking lot, and then go left on the Beaudry down there. She didn't make it on time. If she was in a hurry, she turned out in front of me. Boom. Life changed forever. I should say life improved forever, because it put me on this path of growth and exploration of myself and trying to find a purpose that I don't know if I would have found if I didn't have this happen. I mean, I'm certain that I wouldn't have found this path and this purpose had this never happened. So I hit, and I was like somewhere around there, and that cop came out. He just kind of, I felt safe with him. Like he was like, he knew what to do, what not to do, and just kept me calm. And Cass parked her bike, and she came over, and she was kind of rubbing me on the back. A man offered me water, and I remember I was so calm. I was just really hot, but I was so calm, and the guy offered me water, and I just said, "No, thank you, sir." And then I was talking to the cop that was helping me, and it was almost like I just needed a vent, just like let someone know, like I just want to move. And then he was telling me like the ambulance is on the way, I was like, okay. And then I heard the sirens, and he's like, "You hear it? They're here." Something along the lines of, "Oh well, this couldn't be more perfect. Film it, yeah." Those are probably the guys that came to my aid. I mean, I don't know how many fire departments are around here, but those are probably the guys that came and saved me.
That was too perfect, dude.
That's crazy. My dad actually said, he was like, if you hear sirens, you got to capture that. And I was like, yeah, if it happens. And I told him, he said, if you have any luck, you'll have some sirens. And I was like, well, the way things have been going so far, we're gonna have sirens.
We're getting the whole damn truck.
And those honestly, those were probably the guys, which is pretty wild. It'd be funny if they're like, hey, I think that was the guy. That was crazy. But yes, so back to the extent of my injuries. I knew how bad some element of it was because this guy just yelled out, "Man, look at that guy's leg, it's all twisted up. Get him to the hospital." I was like, all right, well, that's me. So that's not good, but I didn't freak out. I was just like, oh, good. The only thing that gave me like, I knew like, these guys just got in a weird little fight. I'd been moderately injured before, so I knew that it was bad, and I knew I needed to go to the hospital and needed serious help because I couldn't move. I knew I wasn't paralyzed because I was able to like move my fingers and one of my legs. I don't know what's going on, but it's like, welcome to Los Angeles, man. So if she was turning from that median, I would have hit her basically head on. So it was that situation that, maybe it gave me that little bit of give where I could slide along the side rather than just crushing straight on and, going flying or whatever. The way it happened is perfect. Like I wouldn't go back and change a thing about it because I'm okay with where I'm at. I'm happy. So it's all just speculation just for the sake of it. But it's all those little things. It's like those little milliseconds that all these little decisions, all these grab the jacket, maybe she was in a hurry and she would never do this before, maybe this, maybe that. And it's just, once you really start analyzing like every little tiny detail, it feels like everything in my life was leading up to this moment. So I was at a wedding the week prior, It's like if I didn't go to the wedding, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But the wedding had an impact on just my life clock in general. And it put me here. I mean, it's either that or just destiny, which is what I've arrived at. It's like I was destined to be in this accident. There's no other interpretation for me at this point. I was destined to have this happen. It was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. And I wouldn't go back and change it. Not for a second. It's crazy to be here and feel so comfortable with it. Like, I'm not scared. I don't feel like any kind of negative reaction. I feel I feel resolve. Like, I just feel like, yeah, this is where my life changed for the better. One of the other crazy coincidences or stories surrounding it was I had been out hiking the trail and I had gotten back maybe something like 2 months prior, maybe a month and a half prior. And the manager of my liquor store, he was going out of town for a month or two. I don't remember exactly, but he was going out of town for a significant amount of time. And so I was going to have to manage the shop. I was going to have to be there every day, pretty much all day, every day. I was 8 months sober at this time. And all I did at that liquor store was just sneak vodka all day. So I was going back into that world where I didn't really have the stable footing that I have now. And so on the way there, for the first day back, I hadn't gone to the liquor store since. For the first day back at the liquor store, I get stopped. And that's just one of those things where it's like coincidence, destiny. I choose destiny. I mean, that's what it feels like. Like, I wasn't meant to be there. I wasn't meant to have that. That was too much of a threat for me at the time. And something in the universe intervened, or it was already pre-planned, whatever it might have been. I was not meant to get to the store that day. I knew I was in trouble, but I did not know that I was about to spend 19 days in the hospital, go through 12 hours of surgery to fix some of the 13 broken bones that I had, and then the ensuing time in the wheelchair and barely able to walk. 2 years later, I'm just barely like feeling pretty normal, and there's still some discomfort and some pain, but I'm just so used to it at this point that it doesn't even bother me anymore. Just like, it's just how it is. But so no, I didn't know the extent of my injuries. My little stuffed animal I had this stuffed penguin, and it was like my friend. I held on to that thing all the time.
You might be able to lift it back up, and then tilt it down, and then lower it. Okay.
Tilt down?
Yeah.
Just the legs.
Yeah. You're doing, there's the full tilt forward.
Full tilt forward?
Yeah. All right, this is up this way, but hold on. Wait,
No, can I show you, this is about here for...
yeah, I want it higher, 'cause this is gonna compress.
Okay.
And I'm gonna slide right off onto it,
Okay,
but then when I'm getting back off, we'll lower it.
okay. I got your leg, you right hand.
Scoot forward so I can pass the thing.
Okay, gotcha.
Just moving in general hurts so bad.
sink over there.
Well, use your right hand.
I know, I'm not using it, but it's there, so it's just gonna. Okay. Kind of lightheaded.
Okay, just relax. Just wait a second.
Alright, let's get there. I'm good, I'm just gonna go for it.
Anywhere.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. You want me to do something with this?
It's okay.
No, it's crazy.
What's running through your mind?
I don't know. It's just like I never felt really like sorry for myself in the moment, but when I see it, I just feel really sorry for that dude. I don't know. I can't see that and not just be like, God, that's what sucks. What about like with the accident? Because I know like you got called. It makes me emotional even asking you.
Yeah, Mike got called,
Mhm.
and then Mike called me. No, Cass called Mike. Mike called me.
Right. Cass was with me.
Cass was with you.
Right.
And we didn't know anything. And Mike had tried to call the hospital, but they wouldn't tell him anything. So I was at work, obviously freaking out, and then I canceled my clients. I went home. Mike picked me up, and then we drove up pretty much immediately. It was like within an hour. I finished my client I was working on, and then, I was in a state of shock. I mean, because we just didn't know anything. When we got there, Cass was obviously there, and Colby.
Yep.
They made us wait a bit to go back because you weren't into a room yet. You were actually in a room. You weren't, but it was in the main area where everyone's coming in, and most of the people were behind curtains, but you did have a room. And I walked in, and you weren't wrapped up yet, so there was blood like all over the bed. And you just looked at me and you're like, I'm so happy you're here. And I started crying again. I had to leave the room for a second because I got so lightheaded being there. I like had to sit on a chair outside the room, and they were like, are you okay? I just went pale white, and like they had to bring me water because I was just, it's a lot to like see, but they already had you hooked up, so you were in good spirits. But naturally, I think you already just had that, like, I'm going to get through this attitude,
You think I had that right away?
Mm-hmm. Well, the way you smiled and said, I'm so happy you're here. And I don't know. It was just, you're like, it's okay. It felt like you were like trying to make sure Mike and I were like calm,
No, for a while afterwards, I had dealt with a lot of different like issues in my head where I felt guilty that I was alive. I felt guilty that I was able to keep my leg, because most people in motorcycle accidents they lose one or the other. And I was trying to kind of come to terms with all that, and so I was eating ice cream and eating candy and being kind of a glutton. And then one day I just had the realization with such intensity, like, no one's gonna come and save you. You need to get yourself better. Like, get to it. And that's exactly what I did. I ordered an Airdyne bike and got all my foam rollers and stretching stuff, yoga mats, etc. And I just started to make myself better. Took responsibility for where I was, even though I didn't cause what I was dealing with. I just knew that I had to pull myself out. Once I took responsibility for where I was and knew that I had control to get me out of it, that made me happy. It was in my hands, and that was all I needed to know, I guess.